social structure theories. So one of the things we've been doing is studying the causes of crime. And we all know the obvious ones that everybody puts in the books: drugs, gangs, alcohol, and then of course the police blame the availability of guns. We know that there's peer pressure. We know that there's emotion. We know that there are thoughts that something might be genetic that makes people more likely to be crime. You also looked at this week the broken window theory, which basically says when people look around these terrible neighborhoods, they're more likely to commit crimes because of the environment they're in. So now we're going to look at something that's really complicated. And of course, I don't expect you to memorize all of this. Just in general, I think it's kind of interesting to look at sociology, which is the study of society and groups, and talk about why we have crime. So let's go and we'll get through whatever we can get through in 5 minutes. Okay, so the first thing I wanted you to think about was that crime is really caused by social structure, according to many sociologies. The way we set up society makes it inevitable that some people will commit crimes. And that's why no matter what you do, you're never going to get rid of crime. So by the end of the lesson, hopefully you'll understand that social structure is thought to be a cause of crime. So what the heck is social structure? Well, it's theories, and it basically talks about social classes. So society is social classes, people in the population that have the same kind of material goods, the same kind of attitudes, values, norms, and lifestyles. So the definition of society has 3 parts: macro, meso, and micro, just how we interact with each other, all the social institutions, and of course, the family, religion, and education, politics. Those kind of things all make up society. So one of the big things that you look at when you study social structure is, how does society help people meet their goals? And you could argue that, school helps you meet a goal. We have parental units to help you meet goals. So there's a guy by the name of Robert Merton, and he basically said there's a reason that we have deviant behavior, and so deviant behavior is criminal behavior in our society. He says the reason we have deviant behavior is because we have these problems with people's motivation and how they stay connected to getting things done, and also their belief on whether or not they can get things done. So one of the things I want you to think about is kids that are surrounded by poverty have a lot of the other problems that go with poverty, which is, poor housing, poor health care, the family life's disrupted, there's a lot of unemployment, so you don't see motivation, you see sort of helplessness. And in poverty, you want things right now. So Merton says one of the biggest causes of crime is this kind of terrible position you're in because you're poor. So he says when you live in these neighborhoods, you really don't have a choice but to get into crime. So there are 2 main theories of social structure. One is social disorganization, which looks really complicated, but it's actually not. And then social strain theory. And we're just going to talk about these very briefly. So basically, these 2 researchers, Shaw and McKay, looked at 5 areas in the city. All right, so they started looking at people, they started looking at the zip codes, and they found that no matter who lived there, no matter what race, what color, what religion, it stayed true in the zone. So they found that people in zone 2, which is called the transitional zone, that's where you find the high crime in a city. And he said there's a bunch of stuff you saw there. You saw mostly people renting, very few jobs, and a lot of families that weren't intact. So basically, in a nutshell, even though this looks complicated, you can see they looked at this city, but here is where the crime is. And it didn't matter who lived there. It was in the transitional zone. That's where the crime was. So basically he said, you know what? This is where crime is, zone 2. And you can look through this without me, but just in general, it said, immigration, people always want immigrants kicked out. They always say, immigrants bring so much crime. But what he says is it's not really the immigrants, it's that zone 2. All right. Why does zone 2 have so much crime? Well, they're alienated. They're suspicious of each other. They don't have a lot of jobs. It's a slum area. All right. Now let's look at neighborhood strain. So he says, well, in these neighborhoods, there's a ton of gangs, and there's not much help in the neighborhood. People don't look out for each other. So, another big theory is called social strain theory. And basically what it says is society tries to control us. I mean, isn't that really true? I mean, we're constantly told what we can and can't do. So Durkheim says, you know what? If you don't have norms, then people don't feel part of the society. So people that live in these terrible neighborhoods and see all this terrible stuff, they don't feel connected to other people. They feel like they're separate. So then crime becomes a really big problem in these areas. And this is the part I think is really interesting. A guy by the name of Robert Merton says that basically there's a ton of strain in America in these terrible, poor neighborhoods because the American dream creates all this strain. So strain is something that's uncomfortable that we try to fix. And Robert Merton says people in poverty see the American dream as something that they can never have, that it just never can belong to them. Merton says there's no equal chance in America. So basically, Merton says because of this inequality, because of this belief you can never get the American dream, crime is just a natural result of the frustration people have because they can't be successful. So you can't get the American dream the good way. And Merton says, we need the American dream. That's what makes people go to school. That's what makes people go to college or a trade school. But if you can't get the American dream, you have the same goals, but you're going to do it through criminal. Maybe you can't be the CEO of a company, but you can lead a gang. So basically, society doesn't equally give out everything to get goals. Therefore, you're always going to have crime. So just in summary, we tell people these are the goals you want. And if you can't get them, then this leads to strain, which makes some people commit crimes. We're not excusing their behavior. We're just trying to understand it. And Merton says people have to either work in the system, and if they see themselves as being unable to work in that system, then they're going to work outside of it. All right, and he also says, hey, this is a big reason we have gangs. And another guy, his name is Cohen, he picks this up and says, come on, all these poor kids look around at middle class, and they don't relate to that. And when you go to middle school, and you go to elementary school, you're judged against what your teachers think you should do, and you become lacking, and people don't respect you, so you get into trouble and you leave school. Now, this is an interesting one, differential opportunity. Differential opportunity just basically says, if you can't get what you want because everything's blocked off to you, then you're going to get it through crime. So differential opportunity just basically says there's not a lot of opportunity in these neighborhoods, and because there's very little opportunity, they turn to crime. But if you would take these kids out of these neighborhoods, put them in an environment that's rich with stuff to do, they would change. And here's your movie that you can watch for fun, for extra credit. You can tell me how differential opportunity applies to this movie. All right, so social strain theory just basically says the lifestyle you live influences you. And people get connected to gangs because there's a feeling of accomplishment there. And some gangs are only drug related, but other gangs really do meet that goal of feeling successful. If you're not sure how to process this, then I have a question for you. If you've ever gone to tennis camp or soccer club or golf camp or somewhere else over the summer, or you've gone on vacation, or maybe you even are lucky enough to have a condo on the beach or a timeshare, I want you to think about differential opportunity. Not all kids get this experience. For some of us in quarantine, we can still go in our backyard. Some of us have pools in the backyard. Some of us can walk around a beautiful neighborhood that's safe. But that's definitely not the experience for all these other kids in their house or in their apartment or in their Section 8 building. For some of these kids, it means crummy food, no contact with anybody that's been loving them. This isn't easy for a lot of kids in America to be out of school, even if you think you are happy to be out of school. I get it, but it's definitely tough for some kids. So just in summary, hopefully in this 12 minutes we covered why there's so much higher crime in some areas. And the two theories are social disorganization. So basically where you live determines how much crime is around and then how you react to that crime. The strain in these neighborhoods that are right in the city, in Zone 2, where there's a lot of movement. Didn't matter who lived there. There was just a lot of crime. And then, of course, the social strain theory, which relates to the American dream. We don't all get the same opportunity. And because we don't all get the same opportunities, we don't all make the same choices. Have a great day, kids.